Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, Mystery Review episode 64. Yeah, these are movies that I can't watch at night. For very specific reasons of them being of a paranormal nature. And I've had paranormal experiences, not the good kind. Let's just say that I am very much aware that the subject matter in this movie is quite possible in reality. So yes, this is a movie that I watched during the day so that I could get the talking points and such. And it had the hint, "I like your doll," in quotes, which is actually a misquote because it's actually, "I like your dolls." Sorry. But yes, the movie is the first Annabelle movie. And before I go any further, I want to say hello to the chat. But before I do, feel free to like the stream. Also, share it out on social media if you can to get a little bit more draw to the views and whatnot. I'm trying to get to 4,000. Hell, if I can actually break 3,000, that would be great because I'm stuck in the 2,800s. So yeah, if you guys can share the stream out on whatever social media you are on, I would appreciate it. So let's say hello to the chat. So far, I got Jacob Ironside and Ruben Thomas. Good to see you. So yes, this movie, couldn't watch it at night. Every movie that is associated with the Conjuring universe, I do not watch at night. It kind of tends to put those, or the subject matter, too close to the mind when I go to sleep at night. And because I have a very, very powerful mind when it comes to dreams, I am able to remember my dreams and feel in my dreams and whatnot. I try to watch things like this to keep them, or early in the morning, get the talking points out, get it out of my mind later on in the day and into the following night. So yes, this movie, I watched it, what was it? Sunday? Yeah, Sunday. Or no, I actually watched it Saturday morning. Got the talking points down so I can cover it in detail. So, yeah, let's get into it. This movie stars Annabelle Wallis, Ward Horton, Alfre Woodard. She is a great actress. Tony Amendola. And this movie is directed by John Leonetti, and it is part of the Conjuring universe. It has a nice little text in the beginning of the movie. "Since the beginning of civilization, dolls have been beloved by children, cherished by collectors, and used in religious rites as conduits for good and evil." We are then reminded of the Annabelle scene in the first Conjuring movie, where the two nurses went to Ed and Lorraine Warren. Additional dialogue reveals that it was a birthday gift for one of the nurses. Now, it should also be known that a real Annabelle doll is in existence. Annabelle the doll exists in reality. The doll is actually at the Ed and Lorraine Warren home, or the paranormal place where the doll is kept in Connecticut, I believe. And it is not a porcelain doll, as the movies suggest. It is actually a Raggedy Ann doll, which is kind of creepy, as I grew up with a Raggedy Ann and Andy doll that my aunt had at her home. Two dolls about yay big, and then she had the two smaller ones about yay big, that were intertwined, hugging each other. I can never look at a Raggedy Ann doll the same way, knowing what I know about the Annabelle doll being a Raggedy Ann doll. So yeah, after my aunt passed, may she rest in peace. I hope I never see those dolls again. Now, a lot of people may say, "Oh my gosh, that's so silly" and whatnot. I don't find it silly. It's just is what it is. So, let's or there are also some true events to this movie, and most of the movie's events are embellished events. The doll is actually attributed to one death in real life, but it was while the Warrens had the doll locked up, not attributed to a death like what happens in this movie. Now, this movie makes me uneasy at times watching it. The title shows the demonic statue, which is actually modeled after the demon in the movie, Malthus. He is the antagonist, along with the doll, using the doll as a conduit. And we are then shown to Santa Monica 1 year earlier to the events of the Warrens helping the nurses. So the title shows the demonic statue, oh wait, I already showed that. We are introduced to the main couple, Mia and Mia and John. And Mia is very much pregnant. They're in church, and we see Father Perez, played by Tony Amendola, which is a great actor. I have seen him in several movies. He is one of the very talented and ranged actors. And he's also in his older years. Now, the Higgins family are also there. They are friends with the main family, and their daughter Annabelle had run away years ago. The acting in this movie is actually very well done considering what goes on in the movie. This is actually extremely enhanced with Alfre Woodard's character, because Alfre Woodard plays a very caring character who has trauma from her past as well. And she became very caring as a result of the traumas of her own past, which we will get into. Now, when the main couple, their family, this movie sets up that this couple is basically trying to come to terms with having a baby. The husband is getting his residency for a job or as a doctor at the hospital. Could only Sasquatch, good to see you. Just doing another mystery review, episode 64, Annabelle. So yeah, this movie does a good job at setting up certain things, also kind of foreshadowing certain things. One of the things that it really does set up and makes me cringe every time I see it is Mia using the sewing machine, because they zoom in close to where the sewing machine and her fingers are always getting closer to that damn needle. And I gotta say, I've seen that happen. I've seen people get their fingers caught in the damn sewing machine, and it is creepy. It's like, can't stand that. And they show it, and they keep cutting between the TV and her in the earlier scene where nothing happens, but you feel like something is going to happen. James Wan is a producer in this movie, and because he's the one who got the Conjuring universe started. And I gotta say, it really is freaking this movie is done in a way that is truly truly well done. Cinematography and all that is done to a point where you think something's going to happen, then something doesn't happen. But then later on, you see it again happening. Well, then maybe something will actually happen this time, you know? that's how great the story actually is told. Now, the first Annabelle movie is indeed inferior to the second and third, Creation and Annabelle Comes Home. However, I can still appreciate how well they did this movie. They did this movie with very little to it, if any, digital effects. Where in the other one, or the other two movies, they kind of more heavily relied on digital effects a little bit more than normal, especially Annabelle Creation, where the little girl has a demonic face, you know? So, yes, the family is, or she's watching the news, and you're hearing about this family of, or the family. It's a cult. It's kind of like the Manson family, which is also made mention in this one. And they're being reported on the news that they are basically killing people up and down California. And this is a nice little innocuous way of setting up what happens or what's going to happen in a little while. The cinematography, or I've already covered the sewing machine and the family struggling. The first child is always a big change. You see the nursery and Mia's doll collection, so you know that she's a doll collector. And the score and acting are really nice, pointing to it or pointing at a happier time in this movie before the stuff starts happening. And I also like the Easter egg tune of the nursery chime that hangs above the baby's area of rest. I am forgetting it, or forgetting the word. And it's the same as the music box from The Conjuring 1. Now, the last doll from the collection, which is Annabelle, is brought in as a gift to the expecting mother. Apparently, it was a collection of sorts to other dolls in the collection with the same dress and such. Now, we then go into that night where we see the attack next door from the Higgins family is killed and they're murdered, and the doll is possessed through the blood of the cultist female, who happens to be Annabelle Higgins. She and her boyfriend killed their parent, or her parents, her adoptive parents, as we later learn. And this movie does a really good job. The attack has the boyfriend actually stabbing the main character, Mia, who is pregnant at the time, stabs her right into the side of of her very pregnant belly. However, luckily, the amniotic sac is not punctured, and the baby is fine. And as things happen, I like how they actually kind of mute the audio or suppress the audio to allow the audience to really be brought into the shock of what just happened. She is a pregnant mother. Her daughter her child is now endangered. She's in shock. She's having a hard time perceiving things because of the shock she is in. Her husband comes to try to stop these people from killing her. And then the police show up, and the police gun down the male, and Annabelle closes her or shuts herself in with the dolls. And she puts a blood spat on the wall, which you think is blood spatter, but it's actually a very it's a demonic insignia. And then you see blood drip from her dead body when they open the door with the Annabelle doll, and it drips right into the eye and then flows directly into the eyeball. So you understand this is a way for the director saying that something evil has now been passed into this doll, or conjured into this doll. Now, we go to the docks. Everything's fine, luckily, but it's bed rest throughout the rest of her pregnancy. And we see the black and white news, and they start locking the doors because Mia told her husband's like, why aren't you locking the doors? It's like, who's going to rob us in this neighborhood? Well, now they know that they should probably lock the doors. And she now wants nothing to do with the doll, Annabelle. She's like, she had it in her hands. I want that doll gone. Now, that's understandable for trauma. I mean, obviously, if somebody violated your area and they touched something that is important to you, you feel that it is forever tainted, which is actually not too far of a stretch, really, to understand that, And then the things start to or happen, And at first, the chimes, the sewing machine running by itself, it starts innocuous at first, and then it starts to the doll is moving in different areas before they get rid of it. Even more happenings. The doll is rocking in a chair, and I like when she is up, or she gets up to see what's going on. Or it stops rocking at the very last second before she sees what's going on. Her husband needs to do a conference, and the doll is now in a different pose. And we see the first attempt at disposal. She asks him, get rid of it. And he throws it in the trash. Well, the next day with the sewing machine, she is using the sewing machine, and she finally gets tagged with the needle. And it's like, can't stand that. That is one of the reasons why this movie is so good, and one of the reasons why I actually put up with it is because you got to get used to some of the stuff that cringes you out, folks. And this movie actually does a good job at kind of doing that with me, So yeah. Light from outside makes it very bright. Sorry about that. So we then have she's fixing her finger because she poked it, and we get the fire and the stove and the oven dials, and there's a fire. And as she falls trying to get out, we see she falls on her stomach, which it's like you literally fell on your stomach, which thankfully they did right, because she goes immediately to the hospital and has the baby after what happens when people break into her house in order to get her out of the burning house, But as she's trying to crawl away, she's actually pulled by an unseen force toward the fire. And that was actually very well done. I'm guessing they did wires for that, and then they cut out the wires in post. This movie does a very nice job at setting up the happiness and the sadness that goes with it. And when she comes home after the baby is born, she's like, I can't or before they go home, she's like, we can't stay here. That I can't go back to that house. That house is accursed. I do not want to stay there. And he's like, we won't have to. So they moved to Pasadena. And we see her with the baby. She's holding the baby, and she's listening to the apartment issues upstairs, where the noises now become predictable, which is a nice happiness in the new place. We're properly introduced to Father Perez after the baby kind of makes her have to leave the congregation to go outside, so the baby's no longer interrupting the sermon. And we then see that he comes out and asks, can I take a picture of you and the baby for to put on the pictures so we see the new congregation or the new members of the congregation. Nice little picture and whatnot. And then they're back at the apartment unpacking, and the doll is found again. This time, she's a little bit more accommodating, which is odd, but you also hear a change in the score, which really sells the evil that is attached to the doll. And we also see a scene where she's paying attention to the baby, and you see the woman, Annabelle Higgins, the older woman, walking around in the house, and more things happening that goes unknown to the mother. So we see Mia going outside, meeting, let's see here. Right, the kids. We meet the kids who don't want to talk to strangers while the brother's stopping the girl from talking, and the kids working with crayons. And Mia goes out, and they come back. She sees a picture of herself and the baby in the stroller. And we are also introduced to Alfre Woodard's character, who also lives in the same apartment area and whatnot. Well, as Mia and her baby are going up the stairs, more pictures are being dropped or we don't see who's dropping it. We assume it's the kid who was using the crayons earlier. And it shows the baby, or the same picture, but now with a truck in the distance, another picture with the truck a little closer. And then we show a picture with her, the baby, and the baby's dead with blood all over. And so she shows her husband, and she's like, maybe we should talk to the parents. This is kind of disturbing. I mean, what if it was our daughter that did this, And they don't talk, or that is never really shown that they talk to the kid's parents. But it is a nice foreshadow of what's coming or what might happen. So I do like the foreboding sense of this future. And we then get another scene where the record player and a shadow in the window, and you obviously recognize that this shadow is demonic. And the paranormal terror that this starts happening in response with the doll, where she is trying to calm her child, and there's a scene where she's looking at this little girl that's in another room. And then as the door starts to close, the little girl starts running towards the door. And then as the door is bust back open, it's the older Annabelle, the adult Annabelle, and attacks her. And so she's absolutely terrified of that. They end up going to Father Perez. He gives a little bit of counsel, but they don't tell, or she doesn't tell her or the priest about the paranormal bits yet. So, yeah, it does kind of become when are they going to tell him, Now, one of the things I absolutely do like in this movie is as the things escalate, they actually will show you the demon. And we go down to the basement where back in those days they had basement storage, which they actually do have storage like that when it comes to multiple tenant buildings and multiple tenant areas. They actually do have assigned storage areas. And in this scene is where it gets really terrifying, really selling the terror of what is going on and exactly what they're dealing with. And so as she's putting stuff down in storage, you see a baby stroller come out and a baby is squealing in distress, which has always been a trigger for me. It is always uncomfortable to hear. My first instinct is to help the baby. Many people would say that's a very powerful paternal instinct. And yes, I do have that. As she then gets over to the carriage, obviously the baby stops squealing. She goes to look in there, reaching around. There's nothing in there. But then these long 3 fingers, or this hand with long fingers, grabs her hand like this, and she runs away. And you see the demon standing up, and in the darkness, you can't see it clearly, but you do see it is there. And she runs to the elevator, and you see that the demon is still there. And then it closes. She pushes the up button. Well, it doesn't happen. Doesn't work. Paranormal things have a way of scaring people to increase their power. And we then see that she goes for the stair exit. And it's nice lightning and thunder outside. It's a storm. So they use that to sell the effect better. And that this demon is now pursuing her. And it's also left a mark on her arm of that same insignia that was above Annabelle's corpse's head. So we then see him at the bottom of the stairs, kind of hands on the stairs, looking up, getting ready to crawl up the stairs. But then the lightning flashes, and he's right upside down in her face. So it's a nice little terrifying moment. And we then see her wound is covered. She pulls it off, and the wound is completely gone. So now she meets with the detective, because earlier in the film, I forgot to cover this. She met with the detective, and she had it confirmed that they were devil worshippers. And so she wanted more information. I would too if this shit was happening to me. And we learned that they were trying to summon something or conjure something. And they call themselves the Disciple of the Ram. So then we see that Mia is at the bookstore, Evelyn's bookstore, Alfred Woodard's character. And she's like, in my years, there's very little that will surprise me because I have heard so much. And she's like, I think my house is haunted. Aisle 4. And then she hears me a story, and she's like, I don't think that what you're being haunted by is a ghost. I think it might be something inhuman. And so she tells her all the necessary tidbits. It's like, Inhumans will try to stoke your fear, make themselves more powerful. Well, what does it want? It wants a soul. Well, but it needs to be given willingly, And so we now hear the crux. It wants a more innocent soul than normal. The more innocent in the eyes of hell, the better. Well, the mainly innocent soul in that building is the baby. So, yeah. I love how when they see we then get to the next scene, which is the ominous future truck scene, where that was drawn in crayon. And we learn about the demonic happenings, and she watches the stroller get crushed by the truck. She has the baby in her hands, but the stuff is still terrifying her. And then she is in the house, and she goes to take care of something while the doors close. And the baby has a bookcase in back of her. And a book falls to the side of the baby. And another one to the side of the baby. Believe me, folks, when I first saw this movie, it's like, oh my God, please do not hurt this baby. And you then see that the mother is terrified. She's trying to get to the baby. She looks under the crack of the door, and that's when the Annabelle doll falls looking at her. And so she ends up busting the door handle, getting to the baby, picking her up, trying to calm the baby because now the baby is scared. Well, you all now see the Annabelle doll is by the window. And if you look at my Twitter, Volan OHR, or Daniel Volan, you'll see the tweet of me being live, and it will show the scene where Annabelle rises, or the doll rises by the window and zooms in, and you now see the demon behind the doll. And that is such a great shot because it keeps the demon in the darkness, but you do see enough of the face to know that it is indeed there. And the mother is now terrified, so they go to it's like, okay, now it's time to call in the church. And we get reference to the Warrens. They're back east, but I can give them a call, see if they can come. And he then talks about demons, how they're the manipulators of the devil. And they will try to convince a person to give their soul in order to stop the hauntings from happening, to stop the paranormal goings-ons from continuing. And he's like, I will take the doll. Maybe getting it into or on hallowed ground will weaken it so that it can no longer trouble you. Well, Father Perez takes the doll, puts it in the car. You rapid cutting back and forth between him or the side of his face, the passing bys and whatnot, and also in front of him. So you think something's going to happen. You think somebody's going to appear in the middle of the road or something is going to stop him from getting there. Nope, he gets to their church. But as he pulls the doll out and it starts walking towards the church, you see Annabelle is in the car. And then he turns around and he sees Annabelle standing a few feet away from him. Well, then he gets to the church and opens the door. So you finally think, oh my God, thank God. Well, boom, he is shoved away hard. Gotta say, it's like, oh dear Christ, man. Sorry for the Lord's name in vain. But you see there's a lot of blood. So this dude smacked his head on the concrete. Now the priest is in the hospital, and the mother is talking with Evelyn, and her husband is at the hospital because he's a doctor in Pasadena now, and he's trying to help, or he's staying by the priest's side as he lays there. Well, we learn about Evelyn's backstory a little more. She tried killing herself. She has a scar on her wrist area. She tried killing herself because she felt guilty for causing the death of her daughter, who died in a car accident, and she didn't. Survivor's guilt, essentially. And we then learn that when she's alone, let me go back to my talking points here. Let's see here. There. Evelyn is there when the priest wakes up, and the priest tells him, the evil, I can feel it, and I felt it. It wants a soul. Well, you said it has to give it willingly. A baby cannot offer its soul willingly. So he knows immediately what to do. He tries calling his wife. Well, the phone is heavy with static. And I love how they portray that a demon's influence can actually stop can actually stop any outside interference from helping. And you then hear that the baby is screaming, that the baby is crying. Well, she goes in to check. The baby's no longer there, but she can hear the baby screaming and crying and squealing. And Evelyn's like, we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. There's also the priest is outside knocking on the door as as Evelyn goes to check on the baby. And it's not Father Perez, obviously, because Father Perez is in the hospital. And you see the Annabelle demonic eyes of the doll on Father Perez, and he screams out, "May God have mercy on your soul," as the door slams. Well, then they open up the door, and Evelyn's looking around. They're hearing the banging above, and then I love how the camera shifts, looking upward to the demon, and then the demon comes and shoves Evelyn out the door, and the door slams shut. Now, Mia is alone, she's now isolated, trying desperately to figure out how to beat this scenario, How do I get this thing to leave my family alone? And she asks the one thing you're never supposed to ask. What do you want? Well, she then sees a crayon roll outside of the nursery room. She goes and she sees scrawled all over the ceiling, her soul, her soul, her soul, her soul. She's not going to give up my baby. There must be something. Or she then sees Annabelle the doll in the carriage, in the little bed. I forget what they call them. And she picks up the doll and starts smashing it against the cradle, and then throws the doll away. Well, then suddenly she sees her baby is dead. She thought that she had just killed her baby. That is one of the most cruel yet very well done horror aspects of this film. You are so sick and tired of this doll turning up everywhere. Of course, you're going to want to destroy it and smash it and whatnot. And then you throw it, and then suddenly, oh my God, did this demon just make me kill my baby? And let me tell you, when I first saw this movie, my heart sank. It is that terrifying, folks. It really is. Now, she's holding her, she is like just insane with grief right now. And then she hears the baby is laughing, and she realizes she's holding another doll instead. So she throws it away. And so she's like, there must be something else I can do. Well, then on the door, it says, your soul, and it opens up. So she is willing to end it all. Her husband has driven like a madman to get home. He's running up the stairs. Evelyn's trying to get into the room or into the house. She can't, so they both get in. And Mia she doesn't know what else to do. She's ready to end it all with the doll in her hands. And so her husband eventually stops her. And that's when Evelyn makes the choice. She's like, it needs a soul. It will take mine. This is why I am still alive. This is my purpose. This is what my daughter told me. Which her daughter, because when she was telling Mia about her daughter and when she tried to kill herself, she said, Mama, it's not your time. Or she said that her daughter told her, Mama, it's not your time. There's still something for you to do. Now, when a demonic contract is fulfilled, it means the demon is obviously going to get your soul. So she ends up killing herself, jumping out the window, Evelyn does, and she's dead. So the demon has its soul. However, self-sacrifice and faith can actually save that soul. So we must question, did the demon get the soul, or was the soul forgiven for its sin of suicide in order to sacrifice itself for another? One must always ask that question because it's the Constantine scenario where Constantine slit his wrists in order to save the world, to call Lucifer forth to stop his son from taking over the world. And he's like, and then he sacrifices his life for another, and has her, or allows her to go to heaven. Or it's like, you're willing to sacrifice yourself so she can go to heaven? All right, fine. And then he gets to go to heaven, but the devil lets him live. But anyway, that's Constantine. We then see that the house is no longer haunted. The demonic contract has been fulfilled, and the demon leaves them alone. But the doll still has that demonic conduit, as we all know, because it are Annabelle and whatnot, or the other movies. And one of the things I really do like about this movie is they show the full circle of the story, where it was a gift from my mom. And so you see her talking, and so you see Annabelle at the store. She grabs the gift, or she grabs the doll, and then you know what's basically going to happen. This movie, roll credits, and there's the final quote by Lorraine Warren. Or there's also another text. Annabelle now sits in a glass case inside the artifact room of Ed and Lorraine Warren. It is blessed by a priest twice a month. The threat of evil is ever present. We can contain it as long as we stay vigilant, but it can never truly be destroyed. That is a quote by the real Lorraine Warren, who passed away, I believe, in 2019. So that is the end of the Annabelle film. Now, the hints for the next movie will come after I give the scores. This movie, Annabelle, honestly, there's some writing. How you doing, Cult Classic Cage? Good to see you. There are some, hope you're feeling better and hope your sickness is abating. This movie does have some writing issues, does have some plot hole issues and things, unresolved things. They don't, or you think that the kid is right, or drawing these horrifying things in the with the crayons, but then you don't see them resolve it with the parents. They really do try to keep the main story on track. However, they did create a little bit of side story here and there that they didn't follow through with. I do like some of the digital things that they did do, like the child running and then the door blasting open and it's an adult woman instead. It's a nice transition, but you can see that it is indeed fake afterward, because you could tell that the adult is not really in that shot. You could just tell that she was inserted. So there are flaws digitally and whatnot. I would put this movie at a solid 8.5 or 8.5 out of 10. Objectively. Subjectively, it's about a 9 to 9.5. It's a good movie. It scares the hell out of me. It does its job well, to the point where I won't watch it at night. Moviegoer, if you like horror movies that are based on demonic happenings and paranormal stuff, this movie is definitely for you. So yeah, it would be up there with 9 or 10 out of 10. Hints for the next movie, as I am continuing with the horror aspect of the movies and whatnot. A true story of a possessed priest and the quote, "Lock me up." Those are your hints. If you know it, do not spoil it in the comment section, and do not spoil it in the live chat. But thank you for all tuning in. Cult Classic Cage, Canoli Sasquatch, Ruben Thomas, Jacob Ironside. Also, stay tuned for tonight on Society Reviews Bar Stool Stream. We're going to be talking all sorts of different topics. She-Hulk, like the stream I did the other day, yesterday. And we're also going to be talking about some other topics. That will be 9 o'clock tonight on Society Reviews channel. So definitely tune in for that. And tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern Standard, I'm going to have another guest choice review. It's going to be with the Ambassadorial Wing, my friend, and his wife, Madam Ambassador, and we're going to be talking about The Mummy. So definitely the Brendan Fraser Mummy. So definitely tune in for that one, folks. And yeah, and I will call Cassie, don't worry. So anyway, folks, that is going to be the video. Thank you so much for tuning in. It seems like it might be having a little audio issue skipping. Sorry about that. Just as I'm about to do the outro. So, all right, it seems that I'm no longer having issues. Sorry about that, folks. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. You all know the drill. If you're catching this on the replay, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Try to help in any way you can to get my watch time up, trying to get it to at least 3,000 hours before the year's out, because we know that we're going to hit a heavy drop once the end of the year has happened. Sorry, I've been listening to you in the background while we're that's fine, then, man. Thank you so much, Jacob. So, yes, next week, Possessed Priest and Lock Me Up. So don't spoil it. If you know it, I'll talk to you all later. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day, folks. This has been Orange Hat Reviews. Stay humble.